I always believed I had the perfect life. A husband who made me laugh, a home that felt safe, and a baby on the way that made everything brighter. I used to tell people I was one of the lucky ones. But luck has a cruel way of turning on you, because the truth was I was living a beautiful lie. The day of my baby shower was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. I'd spent weeks planning every detail: soft pastels, the scent of vanilla cupcakes in the air, friends cooing over the tiny socks and booties I'd lovingly arranged in a basket. I even had a custom onesie that said, "Daddy's Little Miracle." Because that's what this baby was. A miracle. A promise of something new after years of struggling with miscarriages and silent grief. I remember standing in the living room 8 months pregnant, watching the door as guests arrived. My husband, Marcus, had his arm around me, beaming like the proud father-to-be he pretended to be. His hand rested on my belly protectively as he greeted friends and family, sipping on a glass of sparkling cider. He kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "You deserve the world today." And for a second I believed him. Then the doorbell rang. When I opened it, I didn't recognize the woman standing there. She looked tired, her eyes rimmed with dark circles like she hadn't slept in days. Her coat was rumpled and she was holding a little boy, no older than 4, by the hand. "Is Marcus here?" she asked flatly, not even glancing at the decorations or gifts. I smiled politely, assuming she was a delivery person or someone who'd gotten the wrong address. "Sorry, we're having a private event." He cut me off. "I'm his wife." The room went still. All the chatter, all the laughter. It was like someone hit mute on life itself. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. A joke. A misunderstanding. Something. Anything. She pulled a crumpled photo from her coat pocket and shoved it into my hand. It was Marcus. Holding her. Kissing her. A wedding ring shining on his finger. And the child, that was their son. My hands began to shake. "No," I whispered. "This isn't real." But it was. It was all very, very real. Marcus appeared behind me, his smile vanishing the second he saw her. He didn't deny it. He didn't say she was crazy. He didn't say anything. She turned to him, her voice cracking. "You disappeared on us. You stopped answering calls. I didn't know where you went. And now I find you playing house with her." Every eye in the room turned to him. Then to me. My heart thundered in my chest, my mind spinning. I had no idea who the man beside me truly was. And in that moment, with all my guests still frozen in place, my whole life cracked wide open. I was 8 months pregnant with a man's child, who had not just betrayed me, but who had another entire family, and had walked away from them like they meant nothing. That was the moment I realized, my baby deserved better. I deserved better. And if Marcus thought I was going to crumble quietly and disappear like a shadow, he didn't know who he married. What came next? It would shake the very foundation of everything he thought he could get away with. The room erupted in chaos. Someone dropped a glass. My cousin gasped and covered her mouth. My mother shouted something I couldn't make out. But all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears, and the sound of my baby's heartbeat pounding inside me like war drums. Marcus didn't move. He stood behind me, frozen, pale, like a ghost caught in the act of haunting 2 lives at once. I turned to face him, barely able to breathe. "Is it true?" I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief, pain, and rising fury. "Is she your wife?" His lips parted, but no words came out. Just a pitiful stutter. I can explain." Explain? There is no explanation for building a life with someone while hiding a wife and a child like a dirty secret. No explanation for letting me celebrate a baby shower in a house of lies. No explanation for letting me fall so deeply in love with a fantasy while he played husband to 2 different women. The woman stepped forward, holding her son tightly. Her voice was etched with bitterness and exhaustion. "You left us, Marcus. You walked out the door 5 months ago and never looked back. I had to file a missing persons report because your phone was off and your job said you resigned. Do you know what it's like to tell your child their father vanished?" I felt the room swaying. The betrayal sank deeper, heavier, more suffocating with every breath. And that little boy, he had Marcus's eyes. His smile. There was no denying it. Marcus reached for me. "Please, let's go somewhere and talk." Don't touch me. I screamed, loud enough to silence the entire room. How dare you try to touch me after what you've done? I clutched my belly instinctively, like I had to shield my baby from the poison that now lived in this house. I stepped away from him, the tears threatening to fall but refusing to give him the satisfaction. I wouldn't cry. Not yet. Not here. Not in front of everyone. I turned to the woman, his other wife, and asked, "What's your name?" She looked startled, but she answered, "Kendra." "Well, Kendra," I said, swallowing the rage burning in my throat, "thank you for coming. You just did me a huge favor." And with that, I picked up my keys and walked out of my own baby shower. I didn't wait for Marcus. I didn't care what the guests whispered behind me. Let them talk. Let them know. If my marriage was a lie, I wasn't going to protect him from the fallout. That night, I stayed at my sister's house. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling with my hand on my stomach, feeling every tiny kick like my baby was telling me, "You're not alone. You're stronger than you think." By morning, I had gone from numb to furious. I wasn't just going to leave Marcus. I was going to expose him. He had built 2 lives on deception, and now he would watch them both fall apart. So I started digging. I contacted Kendra again. He and I talked for hours. Compared timelines. Photos. Bank statements. Lies. We discovered Marcus had been juggling both of us for over a year, lying to her about work travel while moving into my house. She even had a receipt for a down payment he had made in her name for a car, using the money I gave him for our baby savings. I also discovered that Marcus had taken out a life insurance policy on me 2 months prior. That chilled me more than anything else. Was I just a pawn? Was my child some kind of backup plan? What was he planning if all this hadn't come to light? I couldn't afford to make assumptions anymore. I had to protect my child. I went to the police and consulted a lawyer. I froze all joint accounts and changed the locks on my house. I had the car re-registered in my name only. I told Marcus through my attorney that if he came near me, I'd file for a restraining order. He begged. He cried. He even showed up at my doctor's office once, swearing he wanted to be part of our baby's life. But I didn't budge. Because every tear he shed was one he refused to acknowledge when he built this double life. Every lie he told was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, just when I thought the worst of the betrayal was behind me, I got an anonymous message on Facebook. A message that would unravel everything Marcus thought he had under control. The message came at 2:17 a.m., just as I was beginning to doze off on the couch at my sister's place. I had taken to sleeping in the living room, partly out of exhaustion and partly because I still didn't feel safe being alone in a bedroom with a door that could close. The alert lit up my phone screen. "You don't know half of what Marcus has done. You need to protect that baby." There was no name. No profile picture. Just a blank account created less than an hour earlier. I sat up straight, my heart pounding with a familiar mix of fear and fury. I replied instantly. "Who is this?" "Nothing." I waited. 5 minutes. 10. I refreshed the page again and again, but the account had already been deleted. I stared at the screen, my mind racing through every possible person it could have been. Kendra? Someone from his job? Someone who knew him before me? That night, sleep was out of the question. The next day I called Kendra. I didn't even say hello. "Did you message me last night?" I asked. "No," she said, her voice tight with concern. "Why?" I told her about the message. And that was when she said something I wasn't prepared for. "Marcus used to get these weird cash payments," she said. "Always said it was side work. But he wouldn't tell me from where. He'd leave at night and come back smelling like bleach. He'd wash his clothes before I could even ask questions." I went cold. What kind of side work pays in cash and smells like bleach? Exactly. We both fell silent. And then Kendra added something else. "There was this one night, maybe 2 years ago. I woke up and found him scrubbing the back seat of his car with gloves on. He said some kid threw up in it, but there was no smell. Smelled like metal. Like blood." I swallowed hard. Maybe I had gotten so caught up in the lies and heartbreak that I forgot something more terrifying. Some men don't lie just to cheat. Some lie because they're hiding something darker. I decided to go through every piece of Marcus's past I could access. I knew he had a locked box he kept hidden in the garage when he lived with me. I'd seen him put papers in there before. That was my next target. I drove back to my house, and got the box from the attic corner where he stashed it behind a wall panel. It was heavy. I cracked it open with a screwdriver and a hammer, and what I found chilled me to my core. Inside were old IDs. Different names. A social security card that didn't match the ones he'd given me. 2 burner phones. Receipts from gas stations in rural towns I'd never heard of. A pawn shop receipt for a diamond necklace, dated just days before he told me we were broke. A sealed envelope with a USB drive. And a folder. Inside the folder were hospital records, not mine, for a woman named Alicia Martinez. Prenatal scans. A birth certificate. A paternity test. Marcus was listed as the father. But the most chilling part? The date. The baby had been born less than a year before I met him. That wasn't Kendra's child. This was a third woman. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop, half expecting it to be corrupted. But what I found made me wish it had been. Videos. One showed Marcus with Alicia, young, clearly pregnant, sitting on a porch while he rubbed her belly. Another showed him yelling at her, accusing her of cheating, demanding a paternity test. A third was a recording of him sitting in his car speaking to the camera. "She thinks I'm gonna let her take everything," he said, laughing. "Nah. I'll fix this. Just like I fixed the last one." The last one? I played that video over and over. That phrase. That smirk. The way he looked like a man with no conscience at all. I had to know, what had he fixed? What had he done? I searched Alicia Martinez online. No recent social media posts. No current job listings. No public photos newer than 18 months old. Then I stumbled across a GoFundMe campaign. "Help us find Alicia, missing mother of one." My blood ran cold. The page said she had vanished after dropping her baby off with her mother. She had been last seen walking to meet someone. The baby was safe. But Alicia? Gone. No suspects. No arrests. And Marcus had been the last man confirmed in her life. My stomach turned. I wanted to throw up, scream, run, hide. Anything to erase the truth I was uncovering. Marcus wasn't just a cheater. He was dangerous. I called my lawyer. I called the police. I gave them everything. The folder, the USB, the phone numbers, the accounts. They told me they'd look into it. But I knew how these things worked. Unless they had solid proof, Marcus would walk free. He'd already slipped through too many cracks. So I decided I couldn't wait for the law. I needed to expose him myself. And the best way to destroy a man like Marcus? Let everyone see him for who he truly was. I started crafting a plan. And it started with getting close to him again. Just close enough to finish what he started. When you realize the man you once loved might be capable of disappearing women, fear becomes a permanent part of your bloodstream. But beneath that fear, something hotter had begun to simmer: rage. Rage that Marcus thought he could destroy me like he did the others. Rage that he dared to smile at me in court like I was nothing more than a loose end. I wasn't going to be a loose end. I was going to be the last woman he ever underestimated. The plan started with a simple lie: forgiveness. I called him 2 days after finding the USB and told him I wanted to talk. My voice trembled just enough to sound believable. I told him I was overwhelmed. I didn't want to raise the baby alone. That maybe, just maybe, I'd overreacted. That we could try. Marcus took the bait like it was candy. "You don't know how long I've waited to hear that," he whispered. "I knew you'd come around." He asked if he could come over. I told him not yet, I needed time, but we could meet in public. Somewhere neutral. A family cafe downtown. He agreed instantly, already slipping back into his fake charm. I could hear it through the phone. I met him wearing soft colors, no makeup, and a forced smile. I let my hands tremble, my voice falter. And when he leaned forward to touch mine, I didn't flinch. He thought I was broken. "Perfect. I've been thinking," I said, keeping my voice low and sincere. "Maybe we could go to counseling. Start fresh." Marcus gave me this slow, indulgent nod. "Whatever you want. I just want my family back." He didn't realize I was recording every word with a hidden mic clipped to my bra. That night I created a burner TikTok account. I uploaded just one clip. His voice. Whatever you want. I just want my family back. The comments exploded. Some called it sweet. Others warned me. But I wasn't done. I started dropping snippets. Just vague enough to stir suspicion, just pointed enough to make people wonder. He told me I was the only one. But I found 3 birth certificates. He said she left. But I found her name on a missing persons page. Each post got thousands of views. People begged for updates. They speculated. Dug into their own theories. Some even linked missing woman cases, pointing out the timelines. And all the while I kept meeting Marcus. Pretending to fall for him again. Gathering audio, photos, texts. Everything. I started feeding this story to a true crime blogger with a massive following. She ate it up. Asked for interviews. I didn't give her my name, but I gave her details only someone close could know. I even mailed her copies of the hospital records anonymously. Within a week she posted an exposé. The charmer with 3 lives. Is he connected to a missing mother? The photos she used? Screenshots from the USB. She pixelated faces. But anyone who knew Marcus would recognize that smile. The story went viral. People dug deeper. Found his old profiles. Noticed inconsistencies. Commented that he used different birthdays on different platforms. Someone tracked down a birth announcement in Texas that matched one of the fake names. Another linked it to Alicia's case. Then came the message that changed everything. It was from Alicia's sister. Whoever you are, thank you. We knew something was wrong. The cops wouldn't listen. But now, they're reopening her case. I cried. Not just for Alicia. But for the other women too. The ones like me who got out. The ones who never had the chance. Meanwhile, Marcus was oblivious. He thought we were rebuilding. He started staying over. Bringing flowers. Leaving his jacket on my kitchen chair like nothing had ever happened. But now I had eyes on him every second. I'd installed a nanny cam. Set up a GPS tracker on his car. Synced his phone's Bluetooth to an old device so I could hear every call he made in my house. I was building a mountain of evidence. And then came the night he made the mistake. He got sloppy. He went outside to take a call, not realizing my baby monitor signal reached the porch. I recorded everything. No, she's playing right into it. Yeah, just like the others. He thinks I love her. I'll string her along until I get what I want. Then I'm gone. He paused. She's got the baby. I need that baby. That's the only way I can keep my story clean. I stopped breathing. He was using our baby to maintain some kind of facade. As a pawn. A prop. Like we were just part of some sick cover story. I sent the recording to my lawyer. To the police. To the blogger. Within 24 hours a warrant was issued. But I didn't tell Marcus. I waited. I invited him over for dinner. Candlelight. Wine. Laughter. He grinned across the table like a man who thought he'd won. And then as he leaned forward to kiss me, the knock came at the door. 3 officers. A detective. And a camera crew from a local news channel tipped off by the blogger. Marcus went pale. What the hell is this? He hissed. I handed him the folder. You've hurt enough women. It ends tonight. He lunged, but the officers were faster. They slammed him to the ground. Read him his rights. As they hauled him away, he screamed my name like a curse. I just stood there. Watching. Breathing. Free. But this wasn't the end. I still had one more chapter to write. Marcus had always been good at disappearing women. Emotionally, legally, sometimes physically. But now he was the one who'd vanished, swallowed into a cold jail cell with no mirrors to admire himself in. For the first time his charm couldn't save him. Not from the footage. Not from the voice recordings. And not from the growing army of women ready to stand behind me. The morning after his arrest, the media swarmed our neighborhood. A news van idled across the street. Microphones were shoved in my face outside the courthouse. They asked about the other women. How many there were, whether I knew where they had gone. I told the truth. I don't know where they are. But I know he lied about all of them. And I know he wanted to erase me too. The statement went viral. Almost immediately, women from across the country reached out. Some had dated Marcus under different names. Some had met him briefly but remembered red flags. The too perfect smiles, the vague past, the overprotective paranoia when they asked questions. Then came the message that made my blood run cold. I think he's the man my sister disappeared with 5 years ago. She left her baby with us. She said she'd be back. She never came home. The woman attached a photo. It was unmistakable. Marcus, clean-shaven with a different haircut, holding a beautiful woman with a tired smile. And behind them, a baby girl. I took the photo straight to Detective Holloway. He didn't hesitate. They reopened the cold case the next day. Over the next week, more women surfaced. Not just exes, but mothers of his children. Some were silenced by threats. Others had fled in fear. One had changed her name and moved across the country, believing she'd never be safe otherwise. Marcus hadn't just been running a con. He'd been running a network of lives, collecting identities like trophies, erasing women after they served his purpose. By the time his arraignment came, the court had enough evidence to hold him without bail. But I wasn't done. I went to every hearing. Every single one. And I brought a framed photo of our son. I'd place it beside me on the bench like a statement. He will never forget what you tried to take from him. Marcus would glance at me each time, but I stopped flinching. I'd look back with a calm, steady glare that said, "You don't scare me anymore." And then, something unexpected happened. Detective Holloway told me they were tracking funds linked to Marcus's aliases. Hidden bank accounts he'd used to funnel money from each woman. The amounts were staggering. He'd drained thousands from women who thought they were building a life with him. Life savings, inheritance money, college funds. And one account was in my name. I nearly screamed. "What do you mean it's in my name?" "He must have set it up after you got pregnant," she said. "To make it look like you were complicit if anything ever went wrong." It was a classic abuser tactic. Build a paper trail to frame the victim. But in his arrogance he had made one mistake. He used my social security number wrong in 2 of the forms. Fraud. More charges. More chains tightening around his smug little empire. And then came the trial. The courtroom was packed with press and survivors. Women who'd never met each other before, connected only by trauma and the same cruel man, held hands as they watched him take the stand. He tried to cry. Claimed he was misunderstood. That he was only trying to be a good father, a good husband, a good man. The judge wasn't moved. Neither was I. When it was my turn to testify, I stood in front of Marcus for the last time. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't falter. "I was one of many," I said, turning toward the jury. "But I was one of the lucky ones. I survived. And now I get to speak for the ones who can't." I told them about the USB. The burner TikToks. The hidden voices. The way he had smiled while plotting my erasure. By the end of my testimony, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Not even the bailiff. Marcus was convicted on multiple counts. Fraud, kidnapping, conspiracy, emotional coercion, identity theft, and more. They added the reopened cold cases to the docket, giving investigators full access to his digital trail. He'll never see the outside of a prison again. But even that wasn't the real justice. That came when I walked out of the courthouse and saw them. Alicia's sister. Another woman he almost destroyed. One holding a toddler who looked just like the baby in the photo Marcus had erased. We hugged like sisters, like survivors, like women who'd crawled out of graves someone else tried to bury them in. "He didn't break you," she whispered. "No," I said, "but he taught me how strong I really was." And I meant it. Because I wasn't just a survivor. I was a mother, a warrior, a truth teller. And now a voice. But there's still one last piece of the story. The chapter where I take everything he built and use it to empower others like me. Marcus once told me power belonged to those who knew how to use silence. That secrets were more valuable than honesty. That if people believed a lie long enough, it became truth. He built his entire life on that theory. Built it by erasing women like ink off paper. But here's what he didn't realize. When you silence a woman, you don't kill her voice. You make it louder. You make it dangerous. You make it rise. After his conviction, I went home not just with relief, but with resolve. There were still wounds to heal, yes. Nightmares. Panic attacks. The hollow ache of having lived beside a stranger for years. But there was also clarity. Marcus had stolen money in my name. He tried to destroy my credibility. But now, with every account frozen, every asset seized, and a mountain of evidence linking back to me, the court awarded me full control over everything he owned. His house. His cars. His investments. His fraudulent businesses. Everything. And I didn't keep a dime of it for myself. I liquidated it all, and founded the Phoenix Foundation. A nonprofit dedicated to helping women escape abusive, manipulative relationships. We offered emergency legal aid, housing support, psychological counseling, and most importantly, digital forensic services. Because women like me needed to know how to find the USBs before it was too late. I hired ex-detectives, cybersecurity experts, domestic abuse advocates, and I partnered with influencers, yes, even the same TikTokers Marcus used for his burner network, to spread our message like wildfire. And it worked. Within 3 months, we'd helped over 200 women flee unsafe homes. Within a year, over 1,000. I did interviews, podcasts, TV spots. I told the world the story Marcus tried to bury me with, and instead of shame, I wore it like armor. People asked me how I found the strength. I told them the truth. I didn't. It found me after everything else was stolen. But that wasn't the end. Because one day I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from a prison. From Marcus. Inside was just one sentence. You were never supposed to win. I read it once. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed what I'd always suspected. His biggest fear wasn't prison. It was me. Me standing tall. Me unbroken. Me with the microphone now. I kept the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and pinned it to the back wall of my office, right beside a photo of my son, smiling, safe, whole. So he'd always know the cost of silence. And the power of truth. And then, just when I thought the story was over, I got another message. From a woman in Texas. She'd been dating a man who told her never to ask questions. Who said he had no family. No social media. Who made her sign a prenup within weeks of meeting. His name? Different. But the smile? The same. The authorities confirmed it. Marcus had tried to replicate himself from behind bars. Through an old friend who idolized him, using manipulated images and remote communication. He tried to start it all again. But this time he failed before he began. Because she had seen my video. She'd read my blog. She'd recognized the tactics. And she'd called me first. We stopped him. Together. And that's when I realized. This story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to every woman who'd ever been erased. Every mother whose children were weaponized against her. Every voice that had been told it was too loud, too emotional, too inconvenient. We weren't victims. We were evidence. We were fire. We were the reason predators like Marcus would never walk freely again. So now when I tuck my son in at night, I whisper promises he doesn't fully understand yet. You're safe. You're loved. And no one will ever erase your mother again. Because I learned the most powerful truth of all. The women he buried became the roots of the empire that rose up to destroy him. And we're just getting started. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment your thoughts, like it to spread awareness, and make sure you're subscribed, because more real stories drop daily and every voice matters.